Good morning. Sit down. How was your political science presentation? Okay. Now all set for the class? Okay.
A cartoon of Ambedkar from 1949 has rocked Parliament today. But should this issue have held up Parliament at all today? Are we just too touchy?
Cartoon depicts B.R. Ambedkar, the architect of the Indian Constitution, sitting on a snail, and the country's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, standing behind him, brandishing a whip. The text alongside criticizes Dr. Ambedkar and suggests he went slow on framing the Constitution.
ये किसी की मजाल नहीं है कि इसको रोक सके, इसमें टेक्स्ट बुक में बनाए रखे, लेकिन हम ये तभी संतुष्ट होंगे कि जो भी दोषी लोग हैं उनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई की, उनको बर्खास्त किया जाए और कपिल सिब्बल साहब अगर इस्तीफा अपना ना दें तो कम से कम माफी तो मांगे इस बात के लिए।
जिन लोगों ने ये गलत कार्य किया है उनके खिलाफ आपराधिक कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए।
What is to go into a textbook, whether they are to be sponsored by the state or regulated by the state, is an issue of global concern. In the Indian case, the fact that we had 200 years of colonialism and that our colonial state was very clear that they were not going to rule only through their brute force, but through ideological discourse. Now that could only occur if people's minds were molded in a particular direction. And two of the critical things that happened in education in the colonial period was the looking at colonialism as a positive thing, and that they put by, for example, the famous line that you would find in a lot of textbooks in the colonial period. There would be chapters which would have the heading that Angrezi Raj ki barkatein, the benefits of British rule. So you were taught the benefits of British rule. The other thing that came in a very massive scale was a communal interpretation of history.
At that time, it was common to see Indian history in terms of the Hindu period, the Muslim period and the British period.
British period, not a Christian period. So the idea of nationality was supposed to be only Western, and Indians were only supposed to be linked to their religions or to their caste.
We have to remember that the 50s is a time when India was recovering from the traumatic experience of partition and the communal riots that followed and accompanied that.
The time comes when we shall redeem our pledges, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
At this time, it was important to rethink the entire frame of history in order to imagine the space and the possibility of a new India.
But then communalism is an ideology, and ideology has to be fought with ideology. Now this realization came a little late.
By the 60s, the NCERT was set up and the CBSE was set up, and the effort at that time was to establish a standard set of textbooks which will be read by every student, and the ideas within those textbooks will become, in a certain sense, the basis of the ideas of this new India.
Textbook writing was considered a hack job. I mean, you didn't know, you did not need to be an expert to write textbooks. I remember there was a fellow in Delhi who used to run a chemist shop, and he wrote textbooks on every subject under the sun.
Then the question was, who would write these textbooks? And here again, I think here India probably led the world.
Professionals of a very high order, and they were among the best experts in history at that time. They were involved in the writing of textbooks in history.
Whether it is Bipin Chandra or Pramila Thapar, Satish Chandra, S. Gopal, R.S. Sharma, they are globally known professors.
Who were fully familiar with the latest developments in their own subject, etc. But also to present a view of India from a secular angle,
in which students and individuals will become secular citizens of a new modern state, purged of their communal religious beliefs.
And most of these communal biases, by most, all communal biases had been imposed on history textbooks, etc., and the kind of history which was taught in schools at that time.
This was something which nationalist historians of the time began to criticize.
Basic structure of these books was that they were liberal, they gave multiple points of view, but most importantly, they were scientific, they were done in a scientific historical manner, they were not full of prejudice and things like that. They were scientific and they were secular.
And these textbooks played a very important role in countering the communal ideology which was being preached by various communal organizations, but amongst Hindu communalism, the main party at that time was Jansangh, Bharatiya Jansangh,
which came to power in 1977. Once that happened, the Jansangh or the Hindu communal forces being deeply ideological, their first target, it's interesting, their first target was not to go make money, but their first target was how to get at the secular ideological space. And one of the first things they did was to ban the textbooks written by Bipin Chandra, Romila Thapar, Satish Chandra, R.S. Sharma, etc. But the response was immediate. All over the country there were protests in universities, etc. And the NCERT itself protested.
Whatever may have been the attitude of the Janata Party government, NCERT refused to follow the dictates, etc. They continued to publish the books which were being attacked.
The next time the BJP came within striking distance of power was in the 1990s.
And continued till 2004. And one of the things which this government tried to ensure was that unlike during Janata Party government, the autonomy of the academic staff of the NCERT was destroyed.
They put at the heads of institutions people who were their own. Like Rajput was made the director of the NCERT.
I think 14 July 1999 he joined as director of NCERT.
His functioning later clearly demonstrated that he was taking dictation from the RSS.
And they went about this job of communalizing history writing in a systematic way.
Similarly, they removed eminent historians like D.N. Jha, etc. from the CBSE, from the various directorates of education, where people could have resisted.
They were hostile to almost every independent, autonomous academic body, like this organization, Indian Council of Historical Research.
Then what they started doing was, they said that these existing textbooks hurt the sentiments of various sections of people.
The debate revolved around the interpretation of Shivaji, of Aurangzeb, of the religious policy of the Mughals, the taxation policy, Jizya, on the Aryan conquest, on Indus Valley. All these issues came up.
They were not able to make these deletions. The books remained for a while. Instead, what they did was they got a whole set of new books written.
And one of the objectives of the books that were written in 2002 was to argue very strongly that the Harappan civilization was actually something that had originated along the river Saraswati, and it was claimed to be an Aryan civilization.
One of the things which is considered as an important evidence to prove that Harappan culture was not a Vedic Aryan culture is the absence of any kind of evidence of the existence of horse in India.
The horse was important for those who wanted to argue that the Harappan civilization was Aryan, because the Rig Veda refers to the horse very frequently.
One Indian technologist, engineer, who pretended also to be a big historian at one time, his name I think is N.S. Rajaram. What he did was, you see, all the seals of Harappan culture are available. They have been printed in numerous volumes, etc. Each and every seal. There is the seal of a unicorn, which is a kind of mythical animal. So this fellow, what he did was,
there was an opportunity to revisit the entire issue through the National Curriculum Framework of 2005, which marked a break and a fresh beginning in many ways.
And under the directorship of Professor Krishna Kumar, who was not a BJP agent, who was not an RSS person. So Krishna Kumar led this move now, and this is in the UPA regime, to say that these books must be rewritten by younger scholars.
The National Curriculum Framework of 2005 were prepared with certain objectives in mind. And one of these was to try and make the access to history much more easy than what it was earlier. And in that sense, to strengthen a certain kind of democratic access to the textbook. The other objective was to try and bring in as wide a range of diversities as possible. For example, instances from different regions, different parts of the world, different communities, tribal populations, forest populations, etc. Groups that had usually been left out of standard history books. A third objective that we worked with was to try and make the books user-friendly.
We were trying to do this through a variety of strategic and pedagogic moves. For instance, the way we use sources, the way we use activities and questions in order to make people think about the past.
The entire emphasis was on doing away with teacher-directed classroom situations and create a situation in the classroom wherein students were creating knowledge for themselves.
How the historians have to extract information from the various sources, the weaknesses of inscriptional sources, the strength of inscriptional sources. No event can be summarized by just reading the inscriptions. They have to fall back on the textual sources to support the inscriptional sources.
Now this is something that went on across different subjects, and it was interesting that it came up in history as well, because history is supposed to be not a subject where you can really create any kind of knowledge, because everything is a given and you sort of just study it or you learn it.
Just to give a few examples on how we use images. Now, images are very often used in textbooks just as illustrations. But what we tried to do in the text is to suggest that images were also records of the past. They tell us about perceptions of the people who produce those images. For instance, this is advertisement of Lipton tea, which is part of a calendar. And this is a calendar which was produced in the early 20th century. And if you see the image closely, you see that the image has pictures and images of palaces which can associate Lipton tea with the Rajas in India. And in the foreground is Queen Victoria's son who is riding a horse. So what it seeks to say is that Lipton Green is something which is drunk by the aristocracy all over the world.
This thematic based also makes children understand history is not related only to ancient, medieval and modern, or political, social and economic. Like for instance, one chapter of cricket in class 9. It deals that even sports or any event can have history.
The fact that cricket also has a history and it is implicated in a wider history of the world is something which we wanted to make the child aware.
So colonialism does not exist, communalism does not exist, national movement exists a little bit here and there, but that's not all. I mean, history is now about clothes and dress and cricket and etc., etc. In the name of making it interesting to students, they've taken history out altogether. And in my opinion, they've done violence to history as well.
We were trying to grapple with certain pedagogic issues which marked a break with the past.
There is no continuity. There is no the element of time has disappeared. It's just one theme here and another theme there.
Secularism and communalism, these are important issues, and we all, individually and otherwise, are part of these debates. But we need to rethink history where a whole range of new ways of looking should become part of our writing of history.
People who bring out the book have to keep in mind the level of the class and what are the basic things that is to be learnt or understood by children. According to me, a book is a good book in school level when it makes children enjoy the subject. My objective of teaching history in classes is to make children take interest in the subject. And if the textbook is interesting, then children also tend to take interest.
Computer manipulation, he morphed it into a horse and claimed that there's a seal with a horse.
You had a statement which was completely erroneous, which said that the cow was already deemed Agnya not to be killed, and the Vedas prescribe a penalty of death or expulsion from the kingdom to those who kill or injure cows. Now, this was wrong simply because the Vedas are not prescriptive texts. The Vedas are actually prayers or mantras. They don't lay down any kind of prescriptions about whether one should eat beef or not. And later Vedic texts certainly refer to cattle amongst animals that are used for the sacrifice.
And one of the things that surprised us, and we were very horrified to see, that chapter consisted of all these images of the swastik seal, or a seal with a woman which showed, with vermilion in the parting. Now, by itself, it was not so much of a problem, but the fact that these particular seals were chosen to be depicted as visual images, it appeared as if this was very rampant, and this was a problem.
This led to a widespread protest in the country. In this case, the press played a very important role. One of the best well-known articles was written by Veer Sanghvi about Talibanizing our education, by Anjali Modi, which says, history as told by non-historians. Another Indian Express editorial said, is Joshi's history.
We had to register our concerns and our protest to the relevant authorities. We then, as the social science departments or the humanities departments of various schools, teachers started writing letters pointing out the exact areas where we had problems and, which we had concerns with. So we wrote about that and sent it to the relevant authorities, to the NCERT, because that was the organization from where the books had come out. Apart from them, also to the CBSE, although we did understand that CBSE was is not the body that writes texts, but is only an examining body.
Several of us signed petitions, we passed resolutions. Some of us even took the matter to the court. We felt that the National Curriculum Framework of 2000 was actually violating the secular framework of our constitution. It was also, we thought, working against the rights of women, also working against the rights of the less privileged sections of society.
We did not immediately hear from any of these bodies, expectedly so. But at the same time, one of the good things that was happening was that there were these discourses and debates that were going on the television as well.
There was a judgment passed by the Supreme Court that actually upheld the National Curriculum Framework, but there were dissenting voices amongst the judges. It was a majority judgment, not a unanimous judgment.
But what was happening was, at the same time, there was another group of people claiming to be liberal who began to say, why are these books which are 25 years old still being written? We must have now new books written by younger scholars, more student friendly, etc., etc.